let's start. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an even more late video. The Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth rating. So, for the record, I am recording this like days before it's supposed to go live. So, yeah. Much like with FF7, I'm going to be going through each of these, explain myself, all while some music from the game goes ahead and plays. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So, as ever, we start with the story. I didn't mention it with FF7, but there's going to be major spoilers. I should have mentioned that before, but whatever. First and foremost, 2 positives for humor. Humor, as this story really makes me really love this. Oh, I guess I should mention 14 missions, and there were no cheats, and I do not count walkthroughs as cheating, period. Don't at me on that. That's so. So yeah, 2 pluses for the humor, as this game made me laugh all over the goddamn place. Good use of atmosphere, as I feel like the atmosphere is used very well. So, not much to say there. Good use of doodads, which is, little trinkets in the background to help tell the story. Good integration of gameplay and story. Which, yeah, not sure I need to say much there. Good internal continuity, which means it doesn't feel like there's continuity errors in between plot points, kind of thing. Lindblom effect. This is how lived in the world feels, and because trust me, you don't want frickin' Japan to feel empty, of all places, Good use of visual continuity. So, yeah. Good world building. As I feel like there is a lot of good elements to establish the world of Digimon in here. Then there's a new wolfism I've coined called Devil May Cry effect. This is when a work utilizes the serious and the silly, and these 2 elements do not clash with each other. That's very important when discerning what Devil May Cry effect is. So, there's good moments of foreshadowing, especially with the Yugo stuff, and Kyoko. We'll get to that later. So now we get into the characters I liked. Nokia. I find people tend to be very hit or miss on Nokia, but I enjoy Nokia because her antics feel genuine and heartwarming, as opposed to Date, who's just got an arrest fetish. We'll get to her later. Arata also has a good arc. Eric, getting in over his head while trying to deal with the threat of the Eaters and Eden syndrome. All good stuff. Kyoko. I love Kyoko. As I feel like she's a good source of comedy and exposition in equal measures, and yeah. Detective Matayoshi. There's not much for me to say on a lot of these, so Detective Matayoshi, honestly, I love how competent he is, and I also love how he doesn't have a stick up his ass. He's a stickler for the rules, but he believes in the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law, despite looking like he prefers the letter of the law. So I end the intro at the end of chapter 2, and it got a story plus because, yeah. I do like the side stories, as I feel they are great slice of life world building events. And yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of good side content in here. It never feels like the side stories derail the main plot, and that's not something a lot of games can claim. Just ask the Trail series about that sometime. I love the case Wow Mysterious Digital Face, as I feel it's a great story beat that shows not only Matayoshi's detective skills, but his humility as well, as he claims that it was actually a line from the avatar character, from the player character, from the Cyber Sleuth, that led him to actually solving the case. Nice, right? We literally say there's a hacker in Shinjuku that hates the police, and he solves the case based on that, even though we were on a wild goose chase the whole time. So, good stuff there. Suedo. Absolutely love Suedo. He is a fantastic example of a mad scientist who is not evil, because there is no real malice to Suedo. His actions can be seen as evil, but he himself is not mwahaha, strangle. He is more chaotic neutral, is how me and Steve kind of played that one up, you know? I loved Matayoshi opening up about his and Kyoko's suspicions about Kamishiro. Hero just continues to emphasize Kamishiro's point. I like Nokia forming the rebels. Okay, it's a silly as hell concept, but it's the kind of silly I can get behind. Nokia is doing something good in the most amateur way possible, and if not for us and the small time enemies that she faces throughout the entire game, well, her Rebel Alliance would crumble faster than Alderaan did in Star Wars. There's against the Death Star. Yeah. And yes, that is where my mind went when she called her team the Rebels. So, her heart's in the right place. She just needs us to be the brains. I like that. There's a story point in my own setting that actually will jump off from this point, and it will be great. And I love that. Now let's get dark, because the case Living Dull Dead Person is just downright creepy in all the best ways. I am not somebody who likes horror. Horror is not my cup of tea. Horror tends to be bleh in a lot of ways. At least for me. Horror tends to be the thing I don't want to interact with, right? I don't like gore, I don't like depression, I don't like helplessness, I don't like any of that. But if you put the horror elements, make the horror elements subtle, well, then it works, right? Because, well, nothing graphic is shown, mostly due to limitations, but still, the atmosphere is eerie, and the implications of the final scene are horrifying on every level. As it transitions to a song that doesn't fit. But the error nowhere to log out to, that did haunt my nightmares for a while, let me tell you. The fight where Agumon and Gabumon, the ones howling around with Nokia, did Warp Digivolve 2. who War Greymon and Metal Garurumon respectively, is awesome, and it just continues the franchise's themes of unity and bonds. Then you have when those two Digimon on DNA Digivolve, Digifuse like Nokia says, as into Omnimon is just awesome. I love that animation. That animation is badass. Love it. Of it. I explained on the stream why the Digifuse line is bad localization. So I won't repeat myself here. Us diving into the Eater to save Yuko. That's a great scene that dives into Yuko's character and also characterizes the Sleuth, which is good. And the despair for once makes sense, as does what pulls Yuko out of said despair. The reminder that she is not alone. Her problems make a lot of sense, and what pulls her out of letting those depressions. Can things not interrupt me? Anyways, and what pulls her out of those delusions works. Now, despite the issues I will talk about in Story -7, I will admit Dante being enamored with how cute Lopmon is just kind of funny to kind of go through. Then you have Gallantmon stepping in to kick off the Royal Knight arc. I don't like the Royal Knight arc, if I'm honest, but I admit Gallantmon stepping in to stop Leopardmon, or Leopardmon. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that, admittedly. Please forgive me. I'm not the hardest of hardcore. I'm just a fan of Digimon. Anyways, it's a great scene, and it actually shows the dichotomy, the difference in opinion that a lot of the Royal Knights have. Because there are some who agree with Omnimon, and there are some who agree with Crusadermon. Yeah. Then there's Suedo's offer to Arata for joining him, which is honestly one of the best as to what I like to call the join the dark side, we have cookies, right? Because you know the speech, right? The villain is like, join me and we will rule the galaxy, and all that shit. Arata's is very good because because Suedo is tapping into Arata's desires, but he also demonstrates that it can be done. 2 positives for that. Then there's Hackmon's arc to become a Royal Knight. Now, despite the issues I have with the Royal Knight arc in general, I do like the Hackmon stuff and find it's actually kind of interesting. Then there's Rena, when we go to hop dimensions to go recruit Yul Force Vidramon. I admit this might be just a me thing. I think she's a delight from start to finish, as she feels like an even more gun-ho Nokia, and I like that. Then you have I'm pretty sure the only triple positive I gave the entire game. The conclusion of Pete's storyline, as Pete is a Wanyamon, and he gets reunited with a friend who has become an old man because he was found in an old computer system. I actually really like that. As I find it is just beautiful, right? And the fact that we decide alongside Kyoko, despite there being some issues with it, to just let it go and let it be this beautiful, happy ending, actually works, in my opinion, right? So 3 positives for that. I warned you there would be spoilers. Kyoko being revealed as Alphamon is just epic. The CG scene revealing it, the way she reveals herself to the heroes, it's all great stuff. Right? There is a bit of issue with coffee stuff, but I shrug. I get that. Honestly. Then there's the scene where we snap our Arata out of his funk. That got a couple of positives, as that was just great, I'm gonna beat you to save you kind of scenes. Then Suedo's plan for defeating the Mother Eater to finally put an end to this. I actually do like that it feels like a this is it, our final battle moment, and it's good. I love capping off the case Boy A. As I feel that is a great cap off to the whole of Arata's entire arc. Then there's the seven deadly Digimon arc, the seven demon lords. As I honestly love that, like that DLC even from a story perspective. And then there's the reveal of Suedo's true intent when we rescue Yugo. Oh, and honestly, it feels like a good reveal of the truth, as it completely fits with Suedo's character. And then there's the ending, the entire outro, which just feels great, triumphant, and yes, I do believe that we are being reconstructed by Alphamon. Because I refuse to believe that's not really us at the end, really. But then again, I believe in the immortal soul, so there you go. So that's it for the positives, 45 in total. Not bad. Not bad, but not especially super great. Right? So, now let's get into the negatives. Alright. First and foremost, the localization. This is something that we'll get into in the rating for Trails from Zero. This is lazy localization. Cyber Sleuth is guilty of lazy localization. Although, similar to Power Rangers, as Linkara points out with Power Rangers Megaforce, it's a bizarre form of it. See, there's no English dub here, but they use the English names of the Digimon in the dialogue text, causing issues when listening to the Japanese audio because of the name changes. And then in other spots, it's properly, they have it properly localized. Then there's the Digifuse thing, like I said. It's just kind of a bizarre form, right? Now, I'm not really angry about the localization of Cyber Sleuth, mostly because I actually feel like it's, how do I put this? I feel like there was you could make more of an argument that Cyber Sleuth wasn't going to get a proper localization, wasn't going to get the proper funding for it. Now, whether you want to blame Bandai Namco for this or whatever, the point of the matter still stands that, you need to. The localization for Trails from Zero was just piss poor, and there was no reason for it, Then there's empty text. This is where things are said, but no real new information is conveyed. It's a bizarre form of it, much like the localization, because most of the info that Kyoko, the main source of the empty text, gives us is fascinating trivia about Japan. It's really something we should be reading in a codex option on a menu, not spending money on our voice actors and taking time out of the main story to sit down and tell this, Which also leads nicely into the pacing, which is just, in my opinion, not very good. It feels like the story beats grind to a screeching halt at times, especially when it comes to the Royal Knight arc. In fact, my claim is that that's when the plot just grinds to a screeching halt. But it just feels like either it takes forever for the plot to get anywhere, and yet simultaneously it also feels like we're just zooming past plot points at other points, and it's just kind of, what the hell? Then there's the dialogue options, which you would think this is gameplay story segregation, and in a way it kind of is. But there's dialogue options in this game where it could have just been one big long text box, except we have to literally make it so you can't have the cutscene progress if you fall asleep. And considering some of these are very long and sloggy cutscenes, that's not a good thing. So now for the characters I don't like, and all four of the characters. Okay, whatever. Random interrupt is random. Anyways, three characters, each with four characters, and I'm sure that people who like this game are probably going to look at me like, what the hell? First and foremost, host Faye. Jimmikin first. I just find him obnoxious, and trying to read his dialogue while listening to the vocal performances. It hurts. Then there's Faye. Hey. So her entire character is arrogance and being a simp for Yugo. And honestly, I get it, but at the same time, it's just like, oh my god. Ugh. Then there's Date. Date is just not my cup of tea, to say that as nicely as I can. Much like with Claptrap, if you find her one-note joke funny, honey, she's great. But if not, then she is just goddamn annoying, although I will say she is not quite as bad as Claptrap for how much ear poison he is, but he is close for me. Not as bad as Crusadermon, though. Crusadermon is honestly the worst written character in the whole narrative for me. Now, I get that she is... I get that the whole eater thing made them go crazy... Made her go crazy or whatever, but... I mean, or maybe Rie... He did, considering, masquerading as Rie for most of it. But she's just not interesting, and she just comes across as a badly written Final Fantasy villain. I want to burn the world! Why? Because fuck good writing, that's why. It's repetitive, and it just gets boring to put up with for as long as we end up having to. So 2 negatives there, for a total of 9 negatives, which leads us with a plus 36 to new story. Gameplay now, and oh boy, is this an extensive list. I am not going to like this. The negatives are not that. The negatives have got a bit too. Regardless, let's just get on with this. So, first and foremost, as you are listening to, I like the music, 2 positives worthy. The New Game Plus is a standard New Game Plus, but it's good. The gameplay story integration is good. I like the battle face, the battle interface. Ace, and I like the core combat. In fact, the core combat is so good, I gave it 3 positives. Then there's the save system. I have honestly kind of warmed up to save systems where you can save anywhere over the years. I used to not like them, but now I enjoy them. And honestly, it's kind of nice. I've been giving praise to the Trails series for that too, because it's very helpful when you just want to save and go deal with other stuff, You don't have to go seek out a save point. Although good save point placement can also mitigate that. Then there's some good quality of life features. Features including the HUD, the interface on the menus, navigating the menus, so on and so forth. Crafting in terms of your Digimon team. The scan mechanic is really good, as the scans actually stay if you flee from battle, and that's kind of interesting, in all honesty. So, and then there's of course the reserve Digimon in being able to come out if your frontline team gets wiped out, that's cool. Cool. I gave 3 full positives for the menus, as I actually think the menus are just the flow of the menus is just fantastic in my opinion, and I actually really wish the menus would flow this well in like other RPGs, you know. So, I like the tutorials. They are simple but informative. Oh, and they're not obtrusive either. I like setting up the skills. That's actually honestly fun for me. The full heal on level up. That is something I have actually started adopting as just a nice convenience feature. Because I love when you level up and your character is just fully healed because it's a new level. I feel like that's awesome, right? And it's a feature I've been loving in the Trails series. I've been giving a positive to each Trails game for that very mentality, right? Then you got the hacker skills, which are essentially the HMs in Pokemon, but done properly. As they are, yes, they are needed to progress, but they're very easy to gain access to. And they don't eat up one of your Digimon skills, right? Also, the info in game actually allows you to see them. So, there's that. Then there's the spell effects just being awesome. I like the animations from the special moves. I gave that 2 positives. Then there's the Digilab, which has a lot of useful stuff, such as the Digivolution, the online battles, and the Digifarm. And accessing it is easy enough throughout the game. Speaking of the Digifarm, it's a triple positive, as I honestly love this, because you can place Digimon into the farm and you can actually do stuff to build their stats. It's through a combination of the ABI stat and their nature. They can also develop items for you, find hidden side quests, or you can just leave them in there and they'll gain experience as you play. Or have it on the Switch where you just put it into sleep mode and let it go. Love it. 3 positives for that. I like the field guide, as I feel you can actually see when Digimon will gain certain skills, and it's all right there in the guide. It's great stuff. I love the info in game, as I feel it is very useful and plentiful. I actually gave 2 positives for that. Then you got the intro, which again I end at chapter 2, and that establishes everything in the game well, in my opinion. Battle, the Digilab, side quests, all at a good pace too, so that's good. Back in Final Fantasy V, I coined a phrase. It was called the Zen of leveling, and this is the first example of a game with, well, actually, no, wait, hang on, am I lying? Give me a moment. Where's my FF7 review? There's my FF7 review. Before I continue to make an ass of myself with all the lies, why is this all 16? That's weird. Anyways, sorry. Need to get on with it. Roll up. Where is my Zen of leveling? Positive. Yes, there are a lot of positives for FF7. Go figure. Okay. Bosses. Sections. Come on. Where is it? Did I not give a Zen of leveling? Oh, here it is. Oh wow, FF7 only got 2 positives for the Zen of leveling, so this is the first. And so, yeah, this is the first triple positive for the Zen of leveling. I stand behind that, by the way. 2 for FF7 actually makes sense. I do feel the Zen of leveling, but I don't think it's 3 positives worthy, because this I actively have to rip myself away from leveling in order to stop, which is good, you know? So here's a personal one for me, but I've always liked the aesthetic of the Digimon franchise. 3 positives for that. I'm not going to deny a Digimon property a triple positive for that, you know? I also like the variety in your Digimon. That was 2 positives worthy. I like the main dungeons, you know, the ones that aren't just the ugly, generic digital space looking ones. Those are nice. There's good visual distinction, good enemy and encounter design. I like the encounters themselves, as it doesn't get boring. There's some good auto battle here, good enemy variety. You know, the Digimon you fight. I like the contrast to the fights. It's in expanding the Nokia core. It's a little forced, but it highlights the awesome value of guest party members. Speaking of which, positive for guest party members, as they are invincible and they are always useful. I love the taste of power we get with Omnimon taking down Faye. You could also call this a Hyper Beam moment, but yeah, this is, oh yeah. Then you've got fighting Ebemon, and inside of Tamashina's mind, and I actually like that. Because it's funny, because the status effect bug can change how you approach the fight, which is actually kind of nice. And then there's of course fighting Barbamon. He didn't feel cheap, and I actually appreciate that. Ditto Kentarosmon. He didn't rely on status effects, and he just fought as fair. I like Craniumon, and as well for a similar reason. He has annoying defense, but after a while his defenses go down, and you can actually get at him again. The Eater Atom, which was what Arata's full Eater form was. That was a good fight, even if I did make it look like a joke. I like fighting Beelzemon. Fighting Daemon was awesome. I refuse to call Daemon Creepymon, by the way. Flat refuse. Belphemon in sleep mode was... It's annoying with the constant healing, but I actually like the idea of it being a unique challenge of all he's doing is healing. That's your challenge. Figure out how to deal with it, right? And then when he goes into rage mode, I actually kind of like that. Although, bring a team of megas, because apparently ultimate and lower, I think he has like an instant kill move for them, or something like that. Yeah, he shits on ultimates and lower. I like fighting Meirei's Monzimon, as it honestly kind of... It's just a kind of a unique setup for it, and I like it. I like the difficulty curve, and the power progression curve. I enjoy the outro, as I honestly kind of like the final dungeon, and honestly, I like the fun fights. And then, yeah, I absolutely do feel like feel powerful, or at least my Digimon do. And yeah, I love how my plus for replayability literally was just me asking a question of, do you even have to ask if I'd replay this game? And then the final positive is like, especially when I think of the different ways to approach the game's progression being so varied. Yeah, 66 positives in total. So then we have the negatives. All right, unskippable cutscenes. I don't usually rag on unskippable cutscenes. I usually don't bother pissing and shitting all over unskippable cutscenes because if a story is good enough, I won't mind the unskippable cutscenes. They'll annoy me, but that's as far as that'll go. It doesn't actively make my enjoyment of the work lesser just because they're there, you know? But in this case, there's way too many scenes in this thing where having a skip button would be oh so wonderful, and its absence is actually actively detracting. Then there's Digiline. This got two negatives because it's a nice idea, but the problem is that it devolves into the same messages over and over and over and over and fucking over again. It's so annoying, and it's a constant issue, you know? It's nice that Digiline will tell you, it will have, for example, Mirai, it'd be like, this Digimon's at max level in the farm. But the problem is that 9 times out of 10, that message is just your Digimon saying, messaging you and saying with the same random crap over and over and over and over and over again. And it's just like, oh my god, shut up, Then there's the bad quest log, which only tracks cases, and that leads to way too many instances of, okay, what the hell do I need to do now, right? Then there's the quest of game, a bug, and an Imperial job. Now, you might have noticed that in the difficulty curve positive, it said despite negative number 5. Well, here it is. It is because this was a difficulty spike that was annoying because it's a baby Digimon kicking my ass. What the hell? It's pretty early on, but at the same time, it's like, what the fuck? Then there's the DLC fight against Rosemon, Black War Greymon, and Myotismon in a villainous cinematic case. I really didn't like this one, and it was worthy of a triple negative for me. It might sound harsh, but honestly, god damn do I hate that thing. You either go to that fight prepared / over-leveled, or you get fucked, right? Now, originally, I was going to give this a wash, but the fight with Bancho Leomon is another cheap bullcrap, as I constantly hate it when the opponent can hit you really hard and rapidly. It's something I complain about all the time in the Trail series. Also, fuck the unwinnable battles. They are just cheap. And there's just they're cheap, there are too many of them, and the problem is that there are often times where we will literally just immediately rematch them, and that second fight is when we can actually defeat the unwinnable battle, and it's like, well, what the fuck was the point? Just make the unwinnable battle a cutscene, for God's sakes. Or pretend like it's battle and have the person like beat us down instantaneously, something like that. Lucamon, specifically the second fight and the third fight got negatives, 1 each. He gets way too many turns in his second form, and Jesus, I hate all of his status effects. Then there's the third form, which is the same, except the only way to damage him is to let him damage himself and survive his cheap as fuck attacks. Yeah, not cool. Leviathan would have been cool had it not been for his overpowered special being able to be used 3 times in a row. If he only did it did that once in the entire fight, I would have been okay with it. But he uses it multiple times in a row where you get the triple whammy of insta-kill, and that's not very good. Hated that fight. Then you have the lackluster dungeon design. Which is just the maze-like design and the samey look of the dungeons. It just gets old really fast, and it makes you less inclined to explore places. Also, the maps there are no real maps in here, and when they do exist, they're kind of terrible, and it's kind of not good. There's the negative about the dialogue options. I don't really need to harp on that again. Then you got the options. So, okay. Most of the time, I don't rag on a game for having lackluster options. Not really. Because most games, just have the volume sliders, and that's about it, right? Well, here's the thing. A lot of other ones actually have more in their option pool, right? Because there's usually specific setups to how the game is displayed, or different things. Even the Trails series, does that. Well, here's an example of the options being absolute shit. Music, sound effects, and voice volumes are the only sliders. Whether or not to have the mini map on, whether or not your partner Digimon are shown. Excuse me. Digimon voices on or off. We'll come back to that in a second. Special attack animations can be turned on or off, set the difficulty setting, and whether or not you accept the data use agreement or not. That's it. That's pathetic. There's almost no options to that. Let's take these games for example. Okay, let's take Trails to Azure here. Okay, this one's got volume sliders. Which button you have turbo modes on, and something else I can't remember, right? Right. So, there you go. Those options are fine. Right, they're not great, but they're more wash than actively harsh. These are broken. And honestly, for a game that was released in the PS4 Xbone Switch era, yeah, that's completely unacceptable. So, for the record here, I will give you an example. Since that's a re-release of a game from the 2010s, I'm going to be a little more lenient on it. That being said, if the options suck that much for these two games, they're not getting mercy on that front. Which, honestly, will probably bite this one in the ass more, but that's beside the point. Anyways, what else do we got here? Then you've got the progress through the main story, as most of the time it's talk to a random person, or examine this random thing in the environment, then go back to the agency and accept it as a case, which is that's just busy work at that point, which also causes a negative for pacing and one for padding, which is just ugh. Then there's railroading, which honestly feels obnoxious at times. As it feels like the game is just railroading you down a path at points, and it kind of feels limiting, if I'm honest. And there is some pretty bad walkthrough-itis in regards to some of the cases at times. So, yeah. Not great. But it didn't. All of those 25 negatives were not enough to diminish it. from getting a final score or gameplay score of plus 41, leading us to a final score of plus 36, thanks to story, and plus 41 to gameplay. I like this. So that's it. That is Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. I know I kind of just barreled through it, but honestly, this is just here as kind of a go through it and kind of explain myself type of a mentality. Most of these are pretty simple. I can give, simple one sentence explanations. Some of them I had to go in more depth because obviously, but regardless, that is it. I hope you have enjoyed this rating, and I will see you in the next one when we start talking about the Trail series. Until then, Blue Wolf Alex of the Lore Walker signing out. Have a good one.